Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Won't take long on this bill. I think we've canvassed a lot of the issues already during the last day or so, but I'd just like to thank members of the committee that did work so well to get this legislation through and in a timely fashion, and to all those that have taken an active role and interest in seeing the New Zealand ACC system being the best possible system that it can be and something that will survive into the future. And I guess when you look at it, that's the heart of what the government is doing here. We actually want to see ACC survive. We want to see ACC there for people. We want to actually maintain a system that gives New Zealanders the comfort that they expect and they have seen in their ACC system for generations now. And so by doing what we are doing today, we are actually making New Zealanders have that security of knowing that ACC will be there for them in the future. And I think that's the key thing that people in this House need to understand, is that this is saving ACC. It's actually making ACC something that is long-term and sustainable. And it's nothing to do with what the opposition Labor Party has been saying over the last day or so. Now, I just want to go through two things. But first of all, I think there has been an abusive process in this House today. The constant amendments that were put up when there's a particular issue here that is in the best interests of New Zealand is something that the Labor Party, I think, needs to reflect upon, because the public out there won't want to see this House waste its time and resources when we're actually trying to do something good for the New Zealand people. And by putting up frivolous amendments all day doesn't really endear yourself to the New Zealand public. And that's something that the Labor Party might want to take on board for future circumstances. But there are two things that came out of today which are very important. The first one is that you hear a constant barrage from the opposition about Woodhouse principles and saying that this is contrary to the principles that were first set up around ACC, that this is taking away those principles that were there. Well, put it this way, look at it from a historical context. You had the Woodhouse report, you had the ACC system, and then in the last term of the Labor government, you had changes to the ACC system. They weren't based on the Woodhouse principles, they were based on the political whim of that government. And we are not reversing the Woodhouse principles. The Woodhouse principles set up the ACC system. What we're looking at are some of the changes that have been made in recent years to the ACC system, and that does not affect the Woodhouse principles. So I think the public out there needs to be very much aware that the Woodhouse principles are intact, the ACC system is intact, and the National Party has made sure that that is the case, and we have not dealt with the Woodhouse principles in the way that the Labor Party has contended over the last day or so. And the second thing that came out of the last day or so that's very important is the idea of full funding. Now, the National Party is committed to that, and we've extended the time frame to enable that to happen. The Labor Party started this debate not knowing where they stood on that. If you looked at Marion Street's face during the debates when she was asked, are you going to do full funding, she was deliberately quiet. She didn't want to commit to full funding. But what happened today, David Parker sat down beside her today, and in response in one of the committee stages, he said, we the Labor Party are committed to full funding. We the Labor Party are committed to full funding. Now that is what the Labor Party policy is, and they were backing this legislation, but they couldn't vote for it. They backed this legislation, but they would not vote for something that was in the best interest of what New Zealanders wanted. And that is the state of the Labor Party at the moment. They don't actually know what they stand for, and when they do know what they stand for, they're not willing to stand up for it. And that is the problem with the Labor Party, and that is why they are polling so badly, and that's why the public out there will see great credit in what National has done to retain the ACC system, and they will not be listening to the arguments that have been put up against this legislation today. So I'd like to commend this bill to the House and like to look forward to this being enacted tonight. And I'd like to thank all those involved in the process, especially members of the Select Committee and those officials involved. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The